Welcome into the Rockies Insider. I'm your host, Patrick Lyons. Joining me today, a return visit for the host of the Goodman podcast, the man that you know as the voice of the Colorado Rockies on television we're getting close to 25 years now. Goodman, what's going on, buddy?
Not too much. How are you?
Doing well.
Good.
Can't complain. The weather's fantastic in Colorado. Is it muggy yet in Texas?
Do you know what? The temperature today is a little bit of a breeze, so it helps. But it's supposed to hit 100 today. So, yeah, it's getting toasty. But last couple of days played golf, and it was really pleasant. And so, it's Texas and starting to be toward the summer. So it's the heat turns on pretty quickly. But things will cool off. We're going to Phoenix from here.
Oh, yeah. Another air-conditioned barn, so that's
right. Exactly.
That's perfect. So when on days that you golf, is the running now pushed to the side, like that's your exercise for the day?
Oh God, no. I got up really early and did my thing. Cardio and lifting and all that.
Logging those miles.
That never. I'm a creature of habit. So
that's a good thing. Thing. Well, we got the Rockies obviously going on right now. And look, you've been calling games since 2002, and you've experienced 5 managerial changes with the franchise during that time, including 3 firings. I'm curious, with despite the similar results in Arlington that we've seen, it seems like there might be a different vibe right now in the early going with Warren Schaeffer. What have you seen from the team?
Well, I think defensively, they've played well the last couple of days. I feel like I'm trying to qualify this. I feel like there's been an intensity, not that there wasn't before in their at bats, but there were 2 ball games that they were in, and I really thought on what night was it? The first night here was that Monday night. Monday night that. When they loaded the bases with 1 out and it's a 2-1 ball game, I thought they were going to take the lead. I really did. And unfortunately, Kyle Farmer hit into the game-ending double play. A loss. They need, they need wins. We understand that, but we also understand where they are. And this roster is, bereft of great talent, and it's not very deep as well. So that combination is in large measure why the Rockies' record is 7-35.
I think we saw it, really beginning on Sunday with German Marquez coming out and shoving Chase Dollander with the no-hit bid on Monday. And then Kyle Freeland, again, bouncing back after the 3 runs off the Josh Young homer. He was shut out. He was lights out for the next 5 innings, only allowed 3 base runners, all singles. It sort of feels like, okay, maybe the starting rotation can lead by example. The bullpen's already been good. There's some bats heating up, like slowly but surely. Again, things might be trending in the right direction, despite the fact the win-loss record really not showing that just yet.
Yeah, it's very easy to, place blame. And I think when a fan base is angry, they want everyone's head. And as you well know, this is not Bud Black's fault by any stretch of the imagination. If you give Bud Black, requisite talent, postseason type of talent, the team's going to be in the postseason as they were in 2017 and 2018. There's no magic elixir. I think the world of Warren Schaeffer also. I think he is one of those young, very bright, very hardworking, very astute, think out of the box manager. And I say manager, and you say, well, he's only done it 2 games. Well, he did it in the minor leagues for 9 years. I have had innumerable conversations with him over the last several years. This is a sharp dude, and this is a guy that people like to play for. So when there is requisite talent, I think the Rockies will win. Now is the road to getting enough talent, getting certain guys healthy, obviously, but getting enough talent. That's where the sport is. And right now, the Rockies' offense has been abysmal. At the top of the lineup, you have, Doyle, who, for whatever reason or reasons, has struggled in large measure this year. I still think he's, hopefully going to come around. I have no doubt he'll come around. I know he's dealt with some more important things naturally off the field, clearly. In the case of Beck, we've seen, you want to talk about good news. Beck has taken a stride and a half forward. He's been good. Hunter Goodman's been fabulous. In fact, at the All-Star game we're coming up a couple weeks from now, he'd be the Rockies All-Star, one would assume. McMahon, after a terrible April, has been really good in May. But after that, lineup gets really light. I mean, super light. So it's hard to win games. They've had to rely on that first part of the lineup being really productive.
Yeah, and all facets of the game essentially have to be perfect in a condition like that. With Tovar coming back, hopefully within the next week or so, that should help lengthen the lineup. I mean, we're even seeing it on Wednesday night, Jordan Beck going down to the third spot in the order, and then McMahon hitting fifth. And already you say, okay, it looks a little bit deeper now in general, which is positive. You brought up Hunter Goodman. He's now on a 95 RBI pace. And again, that's without Doyle being at his best. That's without Ezekiel Tovar for a large stretch of the season. So, he's definitely been, I think, overlooked, at times, and that's going to happen with a team like the Rockies right now. But he has been, alongside Jordan Beck, probably the two biggest breakouts so far through the quarter mark of the season.
Yeah, I don't think there's anyone who would argue that point. And it's, you're looking for areas of improvement individually, and then you add them up enough, then you get collective improvement. But Jordan Beck, interesting. I know you've documented it on your podcast, the fact that he struggled initially, was sent out to Albuquerque, and he didn't light it up in Albuquerque. He had 3 hits and I think 20 or 22 at bats down in Albuquerque because of injury. They were quote unquote forced to bring him back, and he took off. It began in Kansas City when he hit 3 home runs in the doubleheader. The next day, he followed it up with a pair of home runs. So those 5 home runs, and all of a sudden, he was a different guy from a confidence standpoint. He's putting the ball in play with great authority, with far more frequent regularity. And he and Hunter Goodman are the only 2 guys with an OPS above 800. And they were the only 2 above 700 until recently with Ryan McMahon getting on a bit of a roll. Hunter Goodman started out really well, if you recall, in Tampa. If my recollection is accurate, he was pretty solid in Philadelphia, then had kind of a lull. But really since, I think, April 14th, we ran a graphic on this last night on the tube. He was hitting 330. I know that. Oh, so that's a month. And, what is it, 6-7 weeks in? It's baseball. He's been really good in 6 out of the 7 weeks. And I don't care who you are. You pick the biggest name in the sport. Aaron Judge is going to have some weeks where he's rather pedestrian. So Hunter Goodman's been steady. Hunter Goodman's been very steady. And Hunter Goodman, Patrick, and again, I know you know this, he's hit out on the road. He's hitting just a smidgen under 300 out on the road, which is always, and he has more homers on the road. And that's always been the, argument to take away, if you will, from some of the robust offensive stats individuals have put forth with the Rockies. Oh, that's great. He hits, 360 at Coors Field, but he hit only 240 out on the road. So far this year, that has not been the case at all with Hunter.
Yeah, you mentioned the shift to Warren Schaeffer. I sort of think that, anytime you change your manager, you almost want to go with a different style. And obviously there's going to be a difference between a 67-year-old manager and a 40-year-old manager. But we've been talking about this for several days, and you did a special edition of the Drew Goodman podcast, sharing your thoughts about Buddy and the switch. I just wanted to see if you had a favorite memory or favorite Bud Black story that you want to share. I don't know if it's too soon or maybe it's now the right time to just say, let's just talk some more good things and great memories about Bud Black.
I will do it in a more macro fashion, and that is, and I dropped him a note yesterday, and I think I speak for you and other members of the day-to-day media who covered Buddy through almost 9 full years, whatever it was, 8.5, 8.25, and I knew Bud for a long time prior because he was a manager in San Diego. Buddy Black is as classy and as sharp and as wonderful a person you'll ever meet, regardless of whether it's in sport or not. He has the envious ability to remember everyone's name and he makes everyone in his sphere feel important, feel comfortable, and it's not an act. He's just a really good person. And so rather than try to remember individual stories, because he's also, again, Patrick, as you well know, he's a marvelous storyteller. And I am going to miss terribly the chats I've had with him one-on-one, the chats and conversations that everyone who's in the media has been privy to in the dugout, and him telling stories about memories of a stadium or an encounter with, this great player or that great player, or when he plunked someone, he was worried that the guy was going to come to the mound. I mean, he has a million marvelous stories. And I'm going to miss that more than anything, rather than trying to pick out one individual story for you. One of the great parts of the day, even as miserable as this has been from a one-loss standpoint on the field, when you're with Buddy, he's still. I mean, it gutted him. He's such a competitive guy, but it never changed his demeanor. And I would look forward every day to 3:30, 3:15, whatever time he was meeting with the media, or poking my head in the office and chatting with them. And a lot of times you're laughing, and I'm going to miss that on a day-to-day basis. He's not going away. I mean, Buddy is youthful, and he's going to have another gig. But from a managerial standpoint and seeing him every day, boy, I'm going to miss that.
Yeah, and I think to your point about being professional but personable, he had this tradition of, if it was your first time at the ballpark, he wanted to know your life stories. Like, boil it down. Give me 60 seconds. And for that 60 seconds, like, you were a star on the same stage as, one of the best managers of all time. And that was kind of that rub that he would give anyone that was in a circle.
And it wasn't bullshit. It was legitimate. I mean, he's interested in people. He just has a warmth to him that is not in any way, shape, or form a facade, disingenuous. He's a wonderful guy. And I understand it's professional sports. If you listen to my podcast, one of the things I said is, this is what happens in professional sports. Bill Belichick, guess what? His time expired with a guy he was very close with in Robert Kraft, and he'd won 1 million Super Bowls. But some point in time, when you're a head coach or a manager, you're going to lose your gig, and that's what happened. But in terms of the guy, I'm gonna miss him a ton, seeing him every day.
And if you had to use 2 words to describe what went down, that's baseball.
And I for those that are perhaps uninitiated with the Buddy-isms, that is one of his favorite lines, and it's apropos in this sport. There's sometimes you can't really explain things. That's baseball. And with Buddy, being dismissed this year, is not trying to be cavalier about it, because it's tough for Buddy, I'm sure, but that's baseball also, and he's abundantly aware of that.
The best was when he would just be talking and he'd say baseball, like, instead of even saying that's baseball, you're just going to abbreviate it, and that ball just gets through the middle, right past Tobart, baseball, and he just keeps going on. That was the best.
And Patrick, you'd be in the room for his press conferences. I was always listening upstairs in the booth. And one of my favorite responses Buddy would have, and he would never, ever do it in a critical way, but if someone asked a question about, a particular player and maybe how they were, feeling or going about it, where I'm going with this. He goes, "Hey, good question. Probably better question for Kyle Freeland. Probably a better question for Michael Toglia," but, and that's how he would always respond. But I know I speak for you and for anybody that's ever even been around Buddy for a brief amount of time. He's the best. He's aptly named Harry Black's nickname Buddy. Right?
It's funny because when I text my friends sometimes, say, "Hey, how you doing, buddy?" And now, like, I think of him, and I'm like, Oh man, it just kind of bums me out a little bit,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
that's baseball. Luck's asking, and I don't know that anybody really has an answer about turning around the offense. I know down in the minors, there's really Yankiel Fernandez is the only guy in AAA right now on that 40-man roster. Tovar is going to be coming back. I think that's going to lengthen the lineup. It's going to improve things. And I know on the pitching side too, Carson Palmquist is definitely making a lot of noise. I think you even mentioned him on the Drew Goodman podcast, fourth best ERA in the Pacific Coast League. He's not allowed more than 3 earned runs since allowing 4 in his first starts, 45 strikeouts in 35 innings pitched. And outside of that first start with the Isotopes, he's allowed 1 home run in his last 6 starts. So, I mean, this is a guy really knocking on the door for an opportunity in the rotation.
Yeah, I think we're going to see him at some point in the not too distant future. I'm really impressed with what Gabriel Hughes has done down in Hartford. He threw 5 no-hit innings in his last outing. He's been very consistent in the Eastern League. To your point about Palmquist, I always say this: if you have a sub-5 earned run average in the Pacific Coast League, you're like Sandy Koufax. He's pitched really, really well, and I'm intrigued by him. To answer the question from one of your listeners, viewers, with the offense, I mean, Tovar will help lengthen it. Doyle performing better, but Michael Tolia, I love Big Mike, and I thought the second half of last year, like, okay, here he comes. He's going to be an impactful, big leaguer who plays good defense at first base and is going to be a 30-plus homer guy. He's gotten off to a really poor start, which mirrors what happened last year when he was sent out. You mentioned Yankiel Fernandez. I looked the other day. Unfortunately, Yankiel's hitting around 200 in the hitting-rich Pacific Coast League. He didn't light it up in spring training. So, more has to happen. You can't just hand out opportunities. You have to earn your way to the big leagues. Zach Veen came up, and I think Zach Veen felt like, man, I'm a big leaguer. I'm ready to go. And he got humbled. And that's not the worst thing in the world for a young player, because then they learn not only how big a jump it is, but the things they truly need to work on to play at the major league level and hopefully have an impact at the major league level. But, right now, unfortunately, you can't point to 3 or 4 guys and say, hey, man, as soon as those guys arrive, the Rockies offense is going to become elite or, somewhere in that neighborhood. It will help when Tyro Estrada comes back. It would be unfair to make Tyro Estrada, Robbie Alomar or Joe Morgan, but he's a solid player. And, I just saw him about an hour ago in the hotel, and, he's with us on the road trip, and, he's doing baseball, legit baseball things every day. He's fielding every day, he's swinging the bat every day. And at some point he'll go out and hopefully get enough at bats, 30, 40 at bats, whatever that he needs to be back up here. But those 2 guys certainly will help. But the Rockies have a long way to go offensively overall.
Rockies Insider with me, Patrick Lyons. Your Rockies Insider with an even more insider in Drew Goodman here. Let's talk about the Diamondback series that's going to be coming up. I know, when a series is like a day or so away, it can feel like a world apart. And we've had those conversations how, you can't remember what happened the night before because you're calling so many one after the other. Do you really start to prepare for a series when you call it like the day before, the day of, because you've got that day's game that you're thinking about more than anything?
Yeah, I haven't looked at the Diamondbacks here. Inside the division, you certainly have a long history with, and you have a better feel for those teams. But the Rockies playing an interleague series. Everything I've done this week has been on Texas, and even today, even though it's the final game of the series, you're doing a ton of homework on Texas. And right when I was coming on with you, I was putting the lineup in. Texas doesn't have their lineup out yet, and I was going back on Patrick Corbin, who speaking of Diamondbacks, a former Diamondback. So, there's familiarity there, but kind of reviewing his career. And so the long-winded answer to your question is I haven't done a deep dive yet on Arizona. I know they're in fourth place in the division. We all know how gifted this division is. We know how good they are offensively. You like their rotation. So, have a working knowledge, but haven't done the deep dive yet on where Arizona is currently.
Corbin Burns will get the start on Friday night. To be announced, maybe Tanner Gordon is going to make a spot start there. Herman Marquez versus Zach Gallen on Saturday. Chase Dollander, Merrill Kelly on Sunday. I'll tell you one guy that you already know how talented he is, but after that sophomore slump last year, it still might come as a surprise. Corbin Carroll, 13 home runs, like atop the leaderboard for a guy that you think of his speed tool more than anything.
Yeah, Corbin Carroll's one of the great young players in this game. And, he came on last year after the minute somebody doesn't do what they did their first year, it becomes a sophomore slump. I understand that. He was still a very good player. He's playing at a great player rate again this year. And the power's there for a diminutive guy. He can run. He's a gamer. And I think that rubs off on other guys. Suarez, famous for his 4-homer game earlier this year. That's a big bat in the middle of their lineup. Everywhere you look, there's players that you like, right? So it's no accident that they led baseball in scoring last year. This is a team. I was thinking about this earlier, Patrick. I allowed myself to go to the weekend, and we all know the Dodgers, and I know they've had injuries every year. They have injuries, but they have so much depth. The surprise so far has probably been the Giants. We know how good the Padres are. I'm not so sure they're not the best team I've seen personally, top to bottom, in all elements. But don't count out Arizona. I think Arizona is going to have 1 or 2 runs this year where they become a national story where, oh, look at that. The Diamondbacks have won 10 out of 11. Diamondbacks have won 8 in a row. That is going to happen at some point because the pitching is too good and the offense is gifted. So, and they're solid defensively, at least as I remember them.
And the bullpen's strong too. I mean, they're Justin Martinez and AJ Puck on the IL, but they got a closer by committee with Shelby Miller, Kevin Ginkel, Ryan Nelson. It's similar to what the Rockies, I think, are doing right now, where, you saw Zach Agnos get his first 2 career big league saves on back-to-back nights, but then he's in the game early on Tuesday night, and it's okay, just using the best piece and the best reliever for the situation. And, you don't necessarily need to have that role.
One of the things we've seen with Warren Schaeffer in the first 2 ball games, Jake Bird had been used as a multi-inning guy. And Jake Bird's had a fantastic first, whatever it is, again, 7 weeks. And the other night in a 2-1 ball game, Schaefer used him for 1 inning. And as opposed to having him come out for that second inning, he went to another arm in the bullpen. I'm trying to remember who was it, Kinley that night. I think it may have been Kinley. And so, there's, subtle changes with some of the things that we're seeing. And I think if you have a true horse, Robert Suarez at the end of the game, that's your closer. But I don't think there's anything wrong with keeping guys on their toes and saying, I trust all of you guys, and I'm going to mix and match. AJ Hinch does that. Vest has thrown primarily in the 9th inning, but he saw a pocket where the opposition's most dangerous hitters were coming up in the 6th or 7th inning, and he brought his closer in then and then kind of mixed and matched, if you will, the rest of the way. And that's kind of more modern, out of the box, analytically driven thinking. And I do think you'll see some of that from Warren Schaeffer.
Yeah, I think that could be positive for the future of those guys too, because instead of just putting it all, putting that load on one guy like we saw in the past with Justin Lawrence, maybe it was too much too soon. Hey, all those guys can kind of share and feel like, I think I am a closer, but I'm going to share it with these other guys. And now you've got 3 guys that feel like, hey, I want the ball in the 9th when they get a little bit older and more experience. That can be a positive.
Yeah, and I want to say this. I don't want this to seem like in any way, shape, or form that was, an unspoken knock on Buddy, because Buddy was kind of doing the same thing, if you will. Seth Halverson wouldn't always necessarily throw the ninth inning. The Rockies haven't had leads to protect, as we know. But he would show up in the seventh or eighth inning. I mean, he pushed Zach Agnos because he liked the makeup of Zach Agnos. I mean, literally, he had barely gotten here, and all of a sudden he was pitching in the ninth inning, and he had a couple of saves. He was, he can handle it because of his makeup. And, Buddy's really good at identifying guys that, as he said, another Buddy cliche, I like the head. And so, again, that's going to be some carryover with Schaefer. But your original point, it's not like every team has a Mariano Rivera in the ninth inning. And I think it makes sense to go, hey, if the eighth inning, if it's 2, 3, 4 in their lineup in the eighth inning, why don't we bring out our horse or the guy we feel is our hottest pitcher right now, or our nastiest pitcher? Let him throw the eighth today. I like it.
Yeah, no, there's 4 guys that have recorded a save in the 5 saves that the Rockies had. So you're right, Buddy did spread it around. The one thing he didn't do was spread it around to the guys who, as he would describe, there's a walk in there. You don't want to give it to that guy, perhaps.
Yeah. Another phrase we'll miss, right? Now I borrow it. I give him credit, but so and so's coming to the game. Patrick Lyons is in nasty stuff. He throws triple digits, but he's got to walk in there.
That's the Buddyisms. They will forever live on.
Oh, yeah.
Plenty more I'd love to talk with you about, but the last little question before we get out of here. I know you keep close tabs on the Diamondbacks system as well. Jordan Lawler just getting caught up. I'm curious, what are your thoughts that the Rockies no longer having a AA team in the Texas League? Giants are also the same way, where they're on the Eastern League, but you got D-backs, Dodgers, and Padres all fielding Texas League team, but not the Rockies or Giants. Any thoughts on that?
I really don't. I mean, because of my son Zach calling games for the Amarillo Sod Poodles. I was listening to him this afternoon. They played a day game in Springfield, and Amarillo, for those that are unaware, is the AA affiliate of the Arizona Diamondbacks. Christian Robinson, by the way, out of the Bahamas, who was a high pick several years ago and struggled last year, has really come on. He's probably going to be moving soon. They do have some guys in that system. I don't really have an opinion, honestly, Patrick, as to, boy, would it be nice if the Rockies had a team closer in AA, because sometimes guys jump right from AA to the big leagues. But the Eastern League, and from what I understand, the relationship with those, the ownership group in Hartford and the new stadium, Dunkin' Donuts Stadium, it's been a great marriage. So I haven't in any way, shape, or form said, boy, I wish that AA team was in the Texas League, because things have worked out now that the stadium issue has been put aside and they're not playing all road games, has occurred several years back. But yeah.
All right, Drew, you've got a thing going on tonight, I think, and most nights of the week. Let people know, because this is kind of cool. This is a real unique thing. And for anyone that doesn't know Drew Goodman, let them know where they might be able to find some of your stuff at.
The Drew Goodman podcast. It's on Mile High YouTube, Mile High Sports YouTube. And there's we kind of broke into the 21st century January 1st with that, and you can still get the audio wherever you find your favorite podcasts, is what I've heard others say. So I'm just going to repeat that. I'm good at being a parrot. So that's that. And we're on Rockies.tv, where to find the games on television. And right now, Spilly and Huey are waiting in the lobby for me, so we can Uber over to the ballpark and stay in air-conditioned, in an air-conditioned environment, because, as you asked me earlier, it's 100 degrees outside.
I hope you called dibs on the passenger seat, because you're going to get all of that air conditioning right on you, and the guys in the back are going to suffer.
Well, it's not, first of all, they're great teammates, but my legs are shorter than Huey's and Spilly's, so, I'll go. I can be lit. I always say this: a coach seat on a plane, it's like a king size bed for me. So I can handle that.
Smart. You're picking your battles. At Patrick D. Lyons, at Rockies Insider. Appreciate the momentum everyone in the chat, and Drew Goodman gave me today. But as I like to say, momentum, it can only be as good as my next show. So of course, I'll talk to you tomorrow.